Good evening, Wakefield, and welcome to the school committee meeting on this Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. We just concluded an executive session as published in our agenda. I'd like to note that a small group of us are here in studio at WCAT, social distancing, but this is a virtual meeting via broadcast via Zoom on WCAT's live Facebook page. I'd like to start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is the reading of our mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next on the agenda is the public comment section. For those of you who would like to participate, I ask that you identify yourself with your name and address so that it can call on you for you to read your letters. As a general reference, it is best to be brief and concise and to try and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment? Okay, hearing no one, thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
We do. Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the August 25th, 2020 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the August 27th school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meeting, the minutes of the September 2nd, 2020 school committee student services subcommittee meeting, and the minutes of both the September 3rd school committee policy and communication subcommittee and the school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meetings as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Bayer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham? Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
And Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is chair comments. I'd just like to take a quick moment to welcome our students back to school. Thursday the 17th was the first remote day for all our students, and it was really great to have them back. At this time, I would like to pass it off to school community member Chris Callahan for a brief statement.
Thank you, Amy. As I sent all of you a note yesterday, my circumstances at home have actually changed, and I'm going to be moving from Wakefield at the end of October. So I have submitted my resignation to the school committee as of October 15th. It's a heavy heart. This has been quite the long challenge for me, and it seems to never lose its luster. And I certainly hope to remain available for any help that I can give at any time. And I appreciate everybody's help and guidance over the last 15 and a half years.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. And thank you so much for your 15 years of service. There'll be some tough shoes to fill for sure. So thank you. Okay, so along with that, with Mr. Callahan's resignation, that is effective on October 15th, like he stated. And we already have an open seat so we will be reopening and extending the deadline for interested applicants to apply in the same manner as before. The information can be found on the town's website, and please note that the joint meeting that we had scheduled for Tom Flynn's vacant seat on Tuesday, September 29th with Town Council has actually been canceled. So with that, please just refer to the town website for any additional information in terms of timing for when new applicants can submit their information. And that is all I have under chair comments at this time, so I can pass it off to Doug.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining our call, for all that were able to come in via Zoom. And thank you for anyone that might be watching at home. We appreciate it. Just a few comments. First, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say to Chris Callanan, from all of our teachers, administrators, our fine and performing arts, parents, Chris, thank you so much for your service. And I'm sure I'll have another opportunity to talk a little bit more about that, but thank you, right?
You're not rid of me yet.
That's a good thing, Chris. And so I just like to start off with a few comments. I'm so pleased, and I think I'm kind of speaking for all of our administrators and all of our personnel that have participated in our reopening teams. And just to say, you know, thank you so much for your work. We made it to the 17th, where it was the first day of school. Was not our traditional first day of school where we're back in person, and the majority of our students started remotely. But we welcomed back small groups of students, which was our first goal, right? That was our first milestone, and we couldn't have done that without so many of the leaders in the district. But special thanks to our teachers, our nurses, our custodians, our clerical staff. Just thank you, right? We couldn't make this happen without the efforts of so many people. So it's much appreciated. And to parents in the community, thank you for being willing to send your children in with masks. From the kindergartners on the first few days, it was great to see them. It was really great to see them. And apparently the masks don't slow them down from talking, because they look like, you know, they've talked a blue streak when I was over at Woodville, just watching students come in and participating in screening to start. So, but thank you so much. It's really much appreciated. I'd like to start off, and I'd like to introduce Mary Doherty. Mary Doherty is our COVID lead for the district. She's also our kind of lead nurse for the district as well. She is the school nurse at Greenwood, and I'd like to introduce Kelly Qualey, who is the school nurse at Walton. And so Mary and Kelly also participate on the district crisis team, which for the last number of months has been the district reopening team. And so they have taken the lead and have been so helpful to us administrators and to our reopening teams in guiding us on really reopening schools safely. So this evening, I would like to take the opportunity to just share a few of the slides, not the whole slide deck, right? The slide deck that I'm going to share tonight is on our reopening. It's on the website. It's on the reopening page. And this slide deck was put together by Mary and the nurses. They've done an amazing job putting this information together. So we as a cohort, administrators and our school nurses, as well as our director of facilities, we did a training on the 15th to welcome back teachers in person. And this is, you know, we have such a focus on safety this year. We thought that this was really the first most important thing that we needed to attend to. And I would just like to share some of that information that we have shared with our faculty. And then I'd like to turn it over to Mary and Kelly to talk a little bit about their work and also about COVID scenarios. And so we started off by just talking about really how COVID is spread and really the protective measures that we know of at this time to keep all personnel safe. You know, Mary and I think her team very thoughtfully talked about the protective measures that we take in regard to wearing masks and staying socially distant don't only protect us, but they protect others as well. And I think one of the things that was a takeaway from this training and their kind of talk to faculty was that, you know, everybody has a role in kind of keeping each other safe, from the very small details to the kind of the bigger things in regard to staying socially distant, but also being thoughtful about what you're doing outside of school as well. and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So they talked about how COVID was spread. They talked about symptoms of COVID. We talked a little bit about how data and science will guide our return and also our transition from phase to phase. One of the things that we shared, and I've shared this before in this meeting, but we want to reiterate this, is that we're paying very, very close attention to the Mass DPH COVID-19 metric, right? The map that's created, where it rates communities based on the transmission or the number of positive cases per 100,000, okay? So Wakefield, for the last, Mary could probably speak to this more accurately than I can, but probably for the last 12 weeks or 14 weeks has been kind of hovering in green and in the non-color, which means that our transmission rates are below 1%, which is really positive. So another thing that is important for me to note is this idea that we're paying very close attention to other metrics as well. Not only, so this map is kind of the big numbers around number of students, or not students, excuse me, number of people tested, and then the number of positive cases compared to the total number of people tested. So if you were to look, if you Google, COVID Mass DPH map, you can see the map of Massachusetts will come up. You can put in Wakefield and you can see all of our surrounding towns, and you can see Wakefield in green, but it will also provide the data, and it will say, there are 12 to 15 new cases in the last 2 weeks out of 1,500 people tested. That works out to about 0.83%, which is low, or which is below 1%, which is an indication that the transmission rates in Wakefield are in a good place. A better place would be to be in the non-color or that area. But we are also paying attention, and it's really important that you hear this again. We're also paying attention to not only the metrics from the state, but we're also hearing and paying attention to cases that emerge daily. So we are in close contact. We're in contact with Ruth Clay at our local Board of Health daily, and we pay particular attention to transmission rates, not only in Wakefield, but in our surrounding communities as well, okay? And the color-coded chart does not dictate whether we change from or transition from phase to phase. It is a contributing data point, right? But we will also pay attention to other data points as well. So the nurses thoughtfully talked about prevention strategies. They talked about mitigation strategies to prevent transmission. So we are looking at kind of a daily attestation to really chart and keep track of symptoms. This is not uncommon. If you were to go to the doctor, the same types of questions are asked. So we talked about hand washing. Our kids, our students have done just a fantastic job with this in the short time that they've been back. So I won't go on and on with that, but they've been great. And I'm going quickly through slides just because I want to share, again, a little bit about what we've all done as a faculty and staff, and to also share the work that our nurses have put together. So we've talked about mask protocols, hand washing. We've talked about our policy around face coverings and how critical it is. And again, if the performance of our students in the past 4 days and also in the summer is an indication of how we're going to do in regard to our students' ability to wear face coverings, I think we're really going to be in a positive space. Talk about social distancing. And this idea of being socially distant is really important, right? And especially with students, having, especially our younger students, we were talking about this today, our younger students, especially in kindergarten, they just love to be close to their teachers. And, our teachers have just really adjusted well, and they've provided really the appropriate love and care for their kids, but also kind of our coaching students to be safe. So this is what a typical classroom looks like with desks 6 feet apart. Just a very quick note about facilities. I know Bob Shiroli will talk about this as well later in the meeting, but I just wanted to share. We covered facilities updates and the changes in the work that we're doing with facilities with faculty and staff just to keep everyone informed. So at this point, instead of just going through slides, I would like to turn it over to Mary and Kelly so they could talk a little bit about their work and kind of what it's been like to maybe be back in school for a couple days, but also a little bit about COVID scenarios.
Terrific. Thank you, Doug. Hello, everybody. Like Doug had said, we worked collaboratively with all the nurses across the district to come up with this safety PowerPoint presentation. He talked also about the things that we can do within the school to keep safe, the social distancing, the wearing of masks, the hand washing. Some of the other things that we got into in more detail, because we draw off the CDC, the Department of Public Health, the Board of Health, draw from those different guidances and try to put it into a PowerPoint that would make sense about different scenarios that we might come across during the school year and how those would be dealt with accordingly. These could range from a child who is symptomatic or from people who come in close contact with someone who has a positive test. We've outlined each of those scenarios in the slideshow presentation, and it's never ending the variety of scenarios that we could be faced with during the school year. If a child is symptomatic, we will automatically have that child go to a medical waiting room to separate that child from other students. We will evaluate the child, and then the child will have to be dismissed and recommended that a child be tested to see if the child is positive for COVID-19. That would be through the pediatrician or the primary care physician. If a child is negative, then an alternative diagnosis is made. The child could return to school if asymptomatic for 10 days with a reduction in symptoms. We address things like if a kid is sick on the bus, how to deal with that. So people are comfortable and know what to do. The bus driver knows what to do. The teacher knows what to do. And the staff people know what to do. We particularly address if you are feeling ill, please do not come to school. Do not send your child to school. These things are all addressed throughout the PowerPoint presentation. We try to anticipate things that might come up, questions that might come up, but this is kind of a moving target. And as we go along, we will address things as they come up.
So I can just add just a little bit about having just our small groups in at the elementary level. It's been great because with the small groups, we're able to do our hand washing and hygiene talks and social distancing presentations each day, which was really nice. And we're able to field calls already from family members or emails if their kids should go to school and scenarios. So we're already starting with the calls and stuff like that, but it's been nice with just small groups in.
And we can refer to the guidance to try to, give people answers to their questions. We refer to the guidance, and that's just what it is. It's guidance. It does not answer all the questions. It gives you guidance to make the correct choice in your decision making, to give people proper information about how they should handle situations to keep everyone safe.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Kelly. Much appreciated. One of the things that I think I appreciate most in Mary's presentation and Kelly's presentation and our nurses as well is, they've invited, if people have questions, to be in touch, right? To be in touch. I think we've worked through a lot of this information, but like Mary said, there are things and there are scenarios that we haven't worked through yet. That's not to say that we and that's why I use the word yet, right? And so we're problem solving around what it means to keep kids safe every single day. But I will tell you, I think that we are in just a really great space with our nursing staff and the work that you're doing. So thank you so much. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
does anyone have any questions? Susie?
Mary or Kelly, could you just specifically talk about what will happen if a child or a staff member tests positive? The most straightforward use case that we've got, if somebody tests positive, what happens? What's the process?
So there's a couple of things. So if they're tested positive, they're going to let us know, or the Board of Health will let us know. And we have to figure out who was in close contact with that child or staff member. And it's 2 days before their symptoms started is when they're contagious. And then we would notify the close contacts, which is anyone who's in within 6 feet for about 10 to 15 minutes. And those close contacts have to test 4 to 5 days after they lost contact with that infectious student or staff member. And if they're negative, they still have to quarantine for 14 days, no matter if they're negative or not, because they still could come up with symptoms.
Is that relatively new guidance, the quarantining for the 14 days regardless?
No, that's been the case all along.
Yes.
Okay.
And the person who tested positive would have to be they have these terms quarantine and isolation. They mean different things, but they're essentially separating people. A person who tests positive has to go into isolation for a minimum of 10 days until their symptoms have improved, and they have to be without a fever for 24 hours. So a positive test automatically means 10-day removal, 10-day of isolation, regardless. And some people can have mild symptoms and not feel poorly at all. Other people can be ill for several weeks and not come out of isolation for a longer period. It goes according to the improvement of their symptoms and afebrile for 24 hours. And they also have to be released by the Board of Health. The positive test automatically goes to treatment and is automatically Board of Health.
So as a follow-up, if you're positive, you have to isolate for 10 days. If you're exposed to someone who's positive, you have to quarantine for 14?
That is correct, because you can become symptomatic up to 14 days after exposure.
Got it.
That is the thought process behind that. A lot of the guidance is confusing, like for instance, your question. It is confusing on the face of it. That's why even, as the nurses giving guidance or answering questions, we refer to our quick reference guides, we refer to our own information that we have, because it is confusing. We don't want to give misinformation. And just a question that you just gave is a perfect example of the confusion and how it can be easily misunderstood.
Great. Doug, I'm going to have a question about kind of logistically what happens with kids who are quarantined or isolated, right? So they're exposed and quarantined for 14 days or isolated because they're positive. How they are going to engage with their teachers, because most of those kids will have been in a in-person setting, and their teacher will not have been won't be teaching remote, because those teachers are generally teaching in person. I'm just wondering what happens to those kids, because they're out of school for 10 to 14 days. And is the expectation that they're kind of just on their own, or are they going to get moved into a remote cohort? I don't know if now is not the time. That is fine if you don't want to answer that at this moment, but I'm interested in that eventually.
Well, I think it's different at different levels, right? So elementary, with our schedule, with a morning cohort and an afternoon cohort, it would be more difficult for teachers to get access to students. And I think the big question there, Susie, is, how sick is a student? If, can they participate in their learning, or are they unable? And so, you know, and so we need to figure out how best to support them, but by first figuring out what they're able to do if they are in fact positive. But at the secondary levels, there are kind of remote opportunities for students to kind of get aligned with what the work is and get some work done. So, but we're still working through that, Susie, but it's a great question.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's gonna, if we have a positive case, which I would expect that we probably will at some point.
Yep.
And any person that's been in contact with that person within 6 feet over the last 48 hours, that number could be relatively large. You could quickly, not relatively large because we're managing to that, but I just worry about having that kind of backup plan for kids who are able. And to your point,
Yep.
some kids won't be able, they'll be too sick. But for the kids that are, that are quarantined because they've been exposed and don't end up getting sick, those kids could potentially continue to go about their learning.
Right.
I'll be interested to see how we tackle that once we get there.
There'll be more information forthcoming on that, Susie. Thank you. Other questions?
Yes, Colleen. For Mary or Kelly, so you mentioned this generally, the contacts need to be less if they were in contact with a student or staff member less than 6 feet, right? So if we're talking about a student in a classroom or a staff member in a classroom that is socially distanced 6 feet, as the slide showed the classrooms are, and everyone maintained that social distance, then we wouldn't then notify, all of the students or affected people in that classroom. It would only be if people came into less than 6 feet.
Yes,
With-
that is a discussion we've had with Doug and administration about to determine if there is a positive case and people are in the classroom with the child, the staff member, whomever, that would be evaluated in combination with the nursing staff, administration, Board of Health, to determine who would qualify as a close contact. And again, that would be very variable depending upon the grade levels. In kindergarten, it might be safer perhaps to say that all the children in the classroom would be close contacts if they're not able to maintain the social distance. At the high school, they change classes or different groups are mixing. So it is going to be a case-by-case assessment with administration, Board of Health, nursing staff to determine who would be the close contacts of that individual who tested positive. But by definition, a close contact is someone within 6 feet for a period of 15 minutes or more is considered a close contact. That's by definition. And
Right.
That would be determined on a case-by-case.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Okay.
Thank you again, Mary and Kelly. It's much appreciated. I appreciate the time. And
Thank you for having us.
And
Thank
I think,
you.
and I think our audience can tell just by listening to Mary and Kelly for a moment how expert they are in kind of working through this, and the answers that they might not have. They're kind of committed to kind of working with one another and collaborating to figure out how best to keep everyone safe, right? And so, and it's going to be a community effort. So thank you so much for your time. I'd like to kind of transition to and invite Brendan Kent and Tom Bankert into this and onto our Zoom call to talk about fall sports and extracurricular activities and kind of where we are with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Doug. First of all, I just want to say thank you to, I'm a little close to the camera there. I want to say thank you to Mary, Kelly, and all the school nurses throughout the district. They did an amazing job training last week. All of our high school athletic coaches, whether they're teachers in the district or not, attended those trainings, and it was a huge help for us in the athletics department. Lisa Gabberti at the high school, our high school nurse, also did a great job working with us, coming up with safety procedures, for all of our coaches. Sue Corshane, our athletic trainer, has been tremendous throughout this whole planning process. And my assistant, Danny Lund, has been earning his paycheck recently. So, just really grateful for our whole team of people and, our support from our parents, coaches, administration, everybody involved. It's been a total team effort. So really good things so far. We had our first day of tryouts yesterday. Went around to the tryouts, had our second day today. I keep telling our coaches, just take it one day at a time. Kind of our mantra has been, you got to do well on day one to get to day two. You got to do well on day two to get to day three. As Doug mentioned, our number one concern has been safety. So again, our coaches went through WPS safety training. They all took NFHS COVID-19 safety training course online as well. Our athletic trainer and I worked closely with our coaches, kind of come up with a game plan using different procedures to stay safe during practice. And I'm happy to say that so far so good. I feel pretty good about where we are right now, 2 days in.
Thank you, Brendan. Does anybody have any questions for Brendan? Okay, seeing none. Any information from Tom in regards to the performing arts?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me in. Before I start, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the announcement by Mr. Callanan at the top of this meeting. When I arrived to Wakefield 14 years ago, Chris was a huge help and support in the rebirth of the performing arts program. Not only as a school committee member, but as a parent, and he continued the support long after his children graduated, and I can't thank him enough for the support, advocacy, and friendship. I know he will continue to support us moving forward, and now he has more time to volunteer at our events and competitions when we get back to them. I'm gonna take the time that I get to start with that. So, as far as what Doug actually asked me to come in, we're excited to get started with the marching band season. We are following the strict mask and social distancing guidelines that align with the state and the district. We are going to be using a health screener app similar to what the athletics is using. We're going to be putting kids in pods of no more than 15 and keeping them together the entire time for all rehearsals. And strict cleaning and hygiene, no sharing of any equipment. We are a little behind Brendan. We didn't get the go-ahead to start until the beginning of this week. So my staff will be taking a safety protocol training before we start on October 1st. And I have designated myself as the COVID coach. So all COVID matters will be coming through me as we start the process of getting the kids back. Again, with the same mantra that Doug has been preaching to us, day one, we got to do well on day one to get to day two. Right now, we're trying to do well in our pregame to get to day one. And we're off to a good start, and have a meeting with parents, all marching band parents that have signed up in March tomorrow night to take them through everything. And my 4 caption heads have had their staff training. And then we're going to do another staff training on Monday with everybody, with the look to start on October 1st. So we're rolling it out slowly. I had the plan ready to go just in case. So when Doug said to go, I was ready. And so we're looking forward to getting going on October 1st and all the prep working into that.
Thank you, Tom. That's really good information. Does anybody have any questions? Mike?
Hey, Tom, I'm just curious, are you going to be able to do any sort of competitions this year, or is that just not practical?
No, all the competitions have been canceled. All the seasons. Mike has been canceled. Nesbitt's been canceled. Bands of America, obviously, we were planning to go down to Orlando in October to compete nationally again at a Bands of America show at the stadium down there. Obviously, that's off. So, and I don't see a situation where we'll even be able to get all of the kids on the field at the same time. That's 100 100 students on the field at the same time just isn't going to work. But we have a plan to put a product together, and give them something to work towards, along with, you know, technique and just getting the kids in. They want to be with each other, even if it's 6 feet apart and 10 feet if they're playing their instruments, right? So that's what they want, and they're excited for it. I met with them on Monday. The smiles on that Zoom call were just, you know, great to see. They're ready to go no matter what it is. So we're gonna get a product together and just provide whatever we can for our kids.
Good luck.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions? Chris?
I just wanted to comment that, you know, it's certainly no surprise that Tom had a plan ready to go as soon as he had the green light.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Susie, did you have your hand up?
I do, just super quick, and I'm not sure if this is an appropriate time to ask the question or not, but Tom, I know that there's middle school parents whose children are involved in the music program who are anxious to see how things are, you know, going to progress. I'm thrilled to hear that you've got kind of marching band kind of going. Is there discussions and talk about music kind of at least down into the middle school level?
So
Too soon?
no, absolutely. That in the schedule in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, there is a music class, which is different than what they normally have, but that's what fit into the schedule down there to make the cohorts of 15 work. Along with that, during the teen time in their schedule, Adam Colantoni has promised us and has dedicated that the ensembles, band, chorus, and orchestra, will have priority during that teen time. So those kids that want to continue with their instrument or continue in chorus, the teachers are going to provide opportunities for them assigned ensemble time during their teen time, and that's taken a priority in the middle school schedule, and I appreciate Mr. Colantoni's support in that, and Mr. Tetral's support in class rosters and making that work for those kids, because it has been a big push from parents. You're right. So they're going to do the best they can with that. It's not ideal. Nothing's ideal, but it gets us off the ground. They can continue the great work they were doing from the spring in this way, and having their Zoom calls with kids and assigning playing exams and playing work and getting them playing their instruments, to keep them motivated moving into what we hope will be back to normal in 2022. They have an opportunity, and the teachers are going above and beyond. I mean, the music teachers at the middle school have come up with a whole new curriculum they've never taught because of the structure of how things worked out schedule-wise. So they're teaching a brand new curriculum, and they're taking their own time to continue the ensemble curriculums as well, because they want to keep the program up and running strong. So I give them a lot of kudos for that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate the update.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions for Brendan or Tom?
Yeah, I mean, just for Brendan, Brendan and I went back and forth on a topic last week, and I respect what you're going through immensely. I hope you understand that. And with soccer started this weekend, and it was so wonderful to see kids back on the field. I'm sure that's how you're feeling after one day of tryouts in that regard. And certainly it won't be the same. We all know that, but I suspect these kids will appreciate being able to play more than they ever could have before. So I think there's a lot of good to focus on. So thanks for all the work you've done.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we do have a motion attached to this agenda item.
Move that the school committee endorse the plan as by Athletic Director Brendan Kent and Director of Visual and Performing Arts Tom Bankert as presented.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Bayer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Thank you. You still have items?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I just have 2 more items. Before I move on to my last 2 items, I'd like to say thank you to Brendan and to Tom Bankert. You know, I think they've taken advantage of really every opportunity to try to create, you know, ways for students to participate, you know, and I think that they've been tireless. You know, I think that they adhere to the adage that opportunity knocks. Tom Bankert kind of kicks down that door. He doesn't wait for that to happen, which we love. And I think that he and Brendan are really a terrific complement to one another. And I want to thank you genuinely for your leadership and for your work that you're doing on behalf of students and for our community. So thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Our last 2 kind of items are just reopening and the start of phase 2. I'd like to just invite Kara to talk a little bit about what we've been doing so far in phase 2.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So we've talked a little bit about phase 2 and what that entails, and I think everyone has had a chance to look through the plans at each of the levels. I think the majority of what's happening in phase 2 is we're starting all of our students in remote learning, and then taking time to bring in small groups of students. And what that looks like is bringing small groups of students in for special services. We brought in some of our English learners, some students receiving special education supports, and we've also brought in general populations of students for orientations by grade level. That's where they've had a chance to run through the schedule that will be in play on Tuesday. So that's happening at the elementary level, 1 grade level at a time. I believe it was third grade today? I believe, yeah, I'm trying to track all the grades that are coming in. I think it was 3rd grade today. And then Galvin has already had grades 5 and 6, and I believe they're set to have grade 7 in tomorrow, and then grade 8, and the high school as well has been going through by grade level, and I still believe they have juniors and seniors ahead of them to bring in for a day. And it's just been really well received. Our faculty and staff and our building administrators have worked so hard to make this a huge success, and I think we've gotten nothing but positive feedback from the chance to bring kids in so that they can meet their teachers, see their classrooms, see their classmates, and then really get a sense of the modifications that have been made to the building and to the just facilities-wise and procedures in terms of how they'll need to work within the building. And I think overall, like someone had said earlier, our students are just so resilient and have just been great in working with us to follow these new rules. I think outside of that, I think elementary probably has the most different schedule because the teachers are trying when students aren't, for phase 2 I should say, when students aren't in their orientation, our teachers at the elementary level are running a remote schedule that has live teaching blocks, whereas when we move into the hybrid, we've broken off into cohorts to have live teaching with the teachers and then asynchronous learning outside of that, which we'll continue to structure for families as best we can. So I mean, that's really a general overview. The gist of phase 2 is getting students started in a remote setting and then providing opportunities for them to orient to the hybrid schedules, which are set to start on Tuesday. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think I would add, before we jump to questions, I think I would add that we want to thank our parent community for being in touch with us with the positive comments, letting us know what is going well. And we also want to thank parents who have been in touch where they have kind of suggested areas of growth for us. And so, you know, I can tell you that our teachers are their own biggest critics, and they want teaching and learning to go as well as it possibly can. We're 4 days in after being out of school for 6 months. So we're working every single day to improve and to be better. We would ask that you kind of keep the communication coming. It is appreciated. And if you have questions about a schedule or about remote instruction or about whatever it is you might be curious about, we would urge you to kind of reach out to either Kara or I.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Kara. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Mike.
I'm just curious, I know it's only been 4 days, completely understand that after such a long break. Are there areas where, if you had to pick 1 or 2, or areas where it hasn't quite turned out the way you would thought it might when you started into this, recognizing it's only a few days in that we're trying to focus on?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there are a number of areas, Mike. I think, when you draw a plan up on paper, it looks terrific. You can fall right in love with that plan until you have to execute that plan, and you realize that there are things that you didn't anticipate. We realize that there are things that we need to communicate more about, right? And so the other part that has been a wrinkle for us and has been difficult is the idea that we're creating kind of a remote, full remote plan for students while we're in a remote phase, right? And so that's a tricky part because, while all students are in the remote phase, and we've said this, that, it's almost easy because they're grouped together, but parents are asking questions, okay, so what's going to change when we go to full remote? Why don't we know? When is it going to happen? And we want to try to address those questions as quickly as we can. But we also want to move in a way that's thoughtful where, we're not bringing on excess staff or additional staff if we're not quite sure that we're going to transition. So we're trying to balance a number of different kind of projects at once, Michael. And so, but I think overall, I think that again, I think we're critical of everything that we do, and I think our teachers are even more critical of themselves. And I think we're learning that it's really, really difficult to teach via Zoom. Like, it sounds good, but I think it's difficult to engage a cohort of middle schoolers in math for 40 minutes. I think it's easier said than done. But I will tell you that our teachers are working at it, and I think that they are really, I would argue they're doing a great job, but they're also working collaboratively with one another to be better. And that's probably, I hope, the biggest takeaway that that anyone participating in this meeting can hear from us, is that we know that we need to improve. Teachers are working to improve, and we will. So,
no, I think you hit a lot of what I would have said. I think the only thing I would add is just really, everyone's really focused right now on organizational systems, just trying to communicate well with families, just in terms of schedules, especially on the remote side of things. I think it can't be lost that our teachers in a real, I shouldn't say real life, but we are in real life now, in a normal scenario of school, so much time is spent in the early days building routines, building relationships, procedures, and they're right there with their students, be able to hold their hand along the way to create those routines that really last for the rest of the school year. So to do that in a remote setting is challenging, and I think it does take a lot of communication with families, which we're encouraging our teachers to do. I know they're doing. They're communicating a lot with families around, what works in your home to help your student be as independent as possible with this system, in terms of setting up, knowing where the Zoom links are, knowing the schedule, knowing who the teachers are. So I think that there's a lot of work happening right now with that, and I think it's getting better every day, because I think the communication helps and the feedback helps.
We're also thinking about ways to connect with students and families. We're in the process of thinking about a parent university-like offering later in October and also into early November, as an opportunity for us to connect with parents, to hear how things are going, but also to kind of have some different themes and opportunities for people to connect over a number of different things, from the things that Kara mentioned, managing schedules, managing technology, how to do it safely. There'll be other opportunities to learn about social emotional supports. Am I missing anything, Kara?
Equity, diversity, inclusion, social emotional supports, technology. I think you got all of them.
And on the parent level as well.
Yeah.
One of our topics was, compassion as adults for each other and for yourselves, and working with anxiety that's created given the situation we're in for adults.
Absolutely.
So there'll be more information forthcoming on that, but that's really where we are. Just a very quick update around where we are with phase 2.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kara or Doug? Okay.
So my last item is just a facilities update from Bob Shiroli. Bob, I wonder if you could just give us a quick update in terms of where you're at with your work?
Yeah, of course, Doug. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for the time. So as Doug said, I'm going to give a quick facilities update on what we've been doing. First, I just want to, we've been getting some questions around this, both from staff and some parents, and it has to do with the water in the buildings. So we've worked with the water department. Steve Fitzpatrick and Joe Conley and their team over the DPW has helped us extensively. We flushed all of the buildings, and the DPW has tested all the water levels to ensure they are safe. So when water sits stagnant over a period of time, sometimes the pipes, and depending on whether they're copper or steel or whatever they may be, they sometimes tend to leach some chemicals. So you want to get these moving through the pipes, and we've done this since we haven't had the flow in the schools since March. We've been doing this over the summer, but really over the last month or so, the DPW has helped us flush the pipes, and they tested, and everything came back within numbers that they see around town. So that's good news. Secondly, as you all know, we've been conducting independent contractor Bala Engineering. They're doing 2 phases. So the first phase is they've assessed the state of the Wakefield Public Schools HVAC systems. We've received that report last week, and we've shared that with this committee as well as the town and also the WEA. So there's 4 main recommendations and potential HVAC strategies that Bala has suggested to us. And I'll go through those real quick. One of them is increase ventilation in the schools. As I've previously mentioned at other school committee meetings, the DPW has extensively reviewed all HVAC systems and has increased ventilation as much as they can with what we have available. Have operable windows. All windows at Wakefield Public Schools are being repaired and should be on schedule to be completed by end of day Friday. So this includes windows being functional, both to open and close, and also have screens on them. So again, that'll be completed by end of day Friday of this week. Enhanced filtration. So we've changed all of the filters out per our preventive maintenance schedule, both on the town side with the DPW and also on the school side. And where applicable, we've added higher MERV rating filters to try to combat against COVID. And last but not least, portable air filtration units. So we've purchased and have been purchasing portable air purifiers, as kind of they're called in the industry right now. And we hope to have these in the classrooms starting this Friday. So we have 100 being delivered on Thursday between 9 and 1. And we'll distribute these between Thursday and Friday of this week into any interior classrooms, as well as the Greenwood School, where there's no current HVAC or UVAC system, to kind of get the air moving around in those areas. So really, those are the 3 that I wanted to touch base on to give you guys an update on what we're doing with the facilities. So if anybody here has any questions, I'll gladly answer them for you.
Thanks, Bob. Does anybody have any questions for Bob in terms of facilities? Okay, seeing none. Anything else to add, Bob?
That's it. No one has any questions. I think that's all I got.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for the information.
Thank you,
All right,
Bob.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for me. I can turn it back over.
Okay, great. Thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda is the budget items for Christine.
So tonight, we only have one item tonight, and it's about user fees. It's to talk about what Tom and Brendan were speaking about earlier this evening. In July, we voted on user fees at $175 per student. But due to fall not looking like a typical fall, it's now fall 1 for extracurricular and for sports. We've done some analysis about we're not going to have to bus. We are having less less games, 2 weeks less of the season, and no postseason games. So we're gonna have some cost savings there. So we felt that it was important to reduce user fees by $40 per student. So instead of $175, it'll be now $135 per athlete. So we have a motion to accept that new user fee.
Does anyone have any questions before the motion is read? Chris?
Well, looking at the language of the motion, I'm assuming this would be like just for this 1 year, and we're not making a permanent change. So I don't know if we want to clarify that it is just, only for the 2020-21 school year.
Thank you, Chris. That's a good point. I do think that it was meant to be in the motion, but it must have been left out. So Susie, if you'd like to add, for the fall season 2020 as presented, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Chris, it does refer to the fall season, but I'll say the 2020 fall season. Actually, should I say the fall 1 season?
Yes, fall 1.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions before the motion?
Christine, I had a question. Have people already paid, so we're gonna issue a refund? Is that how it will work?
So Brendan's nodding his head.
Gonna write a lot of checks out.
And I have to tell you, we've gotten really good at issuing refunds. So the accounting staff will be all over that. What's happened though before, over the spring, parents just want to roll it forward to the next season. So we have a lot of conversations, and Brendan has a list, and most just want to roll it forward to spring. But yeah, we're going to reach out to everyone.
Tom, did you have a question?
I do, thank you. So what do we expect Brendan to have for participation? I know that there's a couple of sports that aren't running, and what do we see? How's it looked at tryouts in the first couple of days for participation for the sports, fall 1 sports that are running?
Do you want me to answer, Brenna? You got it.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to pull it up right now. So obviously the sports that we have running are girls soccer, boys and girls cross country, field hockey, and golf. As of right now, boys and girls soccer are both roughly around 50, I believe. Boys soccer was at 52, girls soccer was at 47. I know that field hockey was, I believe, in the high 30s. I think golf had 24 going out for the team. Cross country, boys team is always enormous. I think girls are in the 20s, boys were close to 50. So that's just some rough numbers. I do have the exact numbers on my computer. I'm just going to dig them up for a second. But those are some participation numbers off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's more than sufficient to help me understand. So I think those are great numbers. Certainly considering the time we're in, I think that's a pretty solid effort. And it's great to see that that student athletes want to begin to get back, right? Everyone's dying to get outside, and everyone's dying to participate and create some sense of new normal. So I think that's exciting to see that there's a good sense of both athletes and of course their parents who are willing to let them participate. And I would imagine that the same thing, Tom Bankert, if I could ask you that relevant question I should have asked moments ago when you were speaking about band. What do you think your turnout's going to look like?
So we were at 104 when we did the initial signups in March. I had the meeting Monday, and I asked the kids that came to the meeting with the new schedule, they're doing different activities. Some of them are going out for sports, and there might conflict now to fill out a quick form. Are you still going to continue? Are you not going to participate? So right now the number, I have 78 respondents, 76 of which are planning to come back. And that's within that being open for 24 hours. So I still have about 20 kids to hear from, but I'm anticipating 85 to 90% of the initial 104 from March.
Nice.
I
Congratulations.
found our numbers here. Boys cross country, I said 50, they're at 31. Girls cross country 19, golf 26, girls soccer 47, boys soccer 52, field hockey 38.
Nice.
So Brendan,
It's really great to see. Thank you.
was it somewhat impacted by the fact there are no freshman sports teams, you think?
So we are going to run for boys soccer, after conferring with the coach, we're going to go for 3 teams. Girls soccer is still on the bubble, probably 2. Field hockey, I just talked to Kara Luca, our coach. She's probably leaning towards 2 right now as well. So that I don't know how much that impacted things or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm always open to having freshman teams. I'm of it, so that's just how I stand.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I think we can move forward with that motion, Susie.
Move that the school committee approve the superintendent's recommendation to adjust user fees to $135 for the 2020 Fall 1 season as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Ms. Vare,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Ms. Guida,
Yes.
and Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is subcommittee reports, finance and facilities for Chris.
Well, we continue to meet every Thursday morning at 8, and meetings sometimes are short because there's not a lot to update, and other times they're a little more lengthy. But we're trying to stay on top of it so that there are no surprises, and Christine and Doug are really keeping us, right in the loop, and there's nothing really new to report.
Thanks, Chris. Labor, personnel, Tom?
Thank you. So we have continued to meet since our last meeting. We've met 3 or 4 times with the leadership of Units A, B, and C with regard to the development of a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding for the operation of Phase 3. I think we're in a very good space. We don't have a tentative agreement yet, but I think we're really close. I want to certainly thank the leadership of the WEA for being such a good partner in this, for being candid, for being open, for providing some really good feedback and some input, and also for our capacity to collaborate. It has been a really positive conversation. Making the best out of a difficult time is always best done with good intentions and a solid set of common goals, and that's really good to see that we have that place. So, also of course thanks to the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the administrative teams for the work that is being done on their end in this partnership. So I hope to be able to, we'll be meeting again, later this week and continue into next week. So hopefully at our next meeting, we'll have an MOU for Phase 3 and an update on the next part of our negotiations, which would be supervision and evaluation within the hybrid world. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Student services, we have not met yet, but we do plan to meet at the end of September. So I will report back in October. Policy communications, Susie.
So we have a couple of, we have a policy that's on the table up for approval. And we also have a motion to revise a policy that we approved at last meeting.
There was some discussion about a particular bullet that was in that policy that conflicted with other guidance around physical education and mask wearing. And so we're going to make a minor modification to that policy, and we're going to put a motion on the table to make amend that policy. The first one that we laid on the table 2 weeks ago was the student records policy, policy JRA, and it's a policy for broadly about student records and the keeping of student records over time and how people can request that they be destroyed. That is just a standard policy that we needed to get in place. There's also an addendum to that policy that is COVID related specifically and talks about the right for privacy held by students when it comes to being recorded. And so that is something that is the Massachusetts law prohibits the audio recording of individuals without their permission. So there's some words around privacy and recording in a world where we have remote learning going on. So I'd like to make a motion to approve that first policy as presented. I think we make the motion and then I ask for questions.
Yes.
Nod, thank you, Chris. Okay. So the motion is move that the school committee approve policy JRA, student records privacy policy as presented.
Second.
Anybody have questions?
A Zoom call isn't necessarily recorded, right?
They're not.
So,
and they shouldn't be.
so where are we running into the rub about the recordings then?
I think, Doug, do you want to step in or do you want me to try to answer that?
Yeah, what we're doing, Chris, and I think Susie touched base on this, is that the MGL around kind of privacy falls under student records. So we just wanted to include in the addendum, things that we want to promote, behavior that we want to promote, and people should not be, for example, recording a Zoom call where they don't have permission or haven't previously announced that it would be recorded. And so we just wanted to capture that in the policy, and that's why it's there. Did I answer your question, Chris?
I didn't know if it was an existing problem or we just wanted to be sure it didn't happen. I mean, like our meeting tonight is very clearly stated at the beginning that this meeting is being recorded.
Right.
I don't think I've ever been on any other type of Zoom call where there was any recording going on, but are you telling me a participant could have been recording it and I wouldn't know?
Well, if they did, it would be unlawful, right? And so that we just want people to make good decisions and let them know what protections that we have, right? And so everyone is kind of using Zoom now. It's become the new standard, right? And of how we communicate. And we just want to provide information and a policy to let people know and to promote the behavior that we most really want to see.
In answer to your question, Chris, you would be able to know if someone's recording on Zoom because it's in the top left portion of your screen.
And just to add too, we do have some control in terms of settings where, we can, as we continue to learn and train more around Zoom and what the host is capable, I believe the host can prevent others from recording too within the settings. So I think there's some safety things that we can put in play, but it is good to note it though.
We also don't want people to use their phone to record
right.
A conference as well, right?
Right.
So yes, Mike, you're spot on around, the indicators on Zoom that allow us to know, but we also want to be clear in regard to our expectations just around recording. We're not anticipating that it's going to be a problem. We're not suggesting that it is a problem. We just want to be proactive, again, around behaviors that we want to see.
I was just going to add that I know that we've heard from parents too that have asked if, especially maybe on the elementary or their lower middle school levels, if they could see their, more than Google Classroom, they've asked if the Zoom meetings will be recorded so that they could sort of tap into that. So the issues come up, so I think it's really important to have the standard set, where not everyone's aware that that is, you know, under the privacy policy.
So I think we're entitled, and correct me if I'm off, Susie, with this, we're entitled to provide a safe environment for kids in whatever environment that we're providing teaching and learning, right? And if, you know, if we're in a setting and we're kind of providing instruction via Zoom, you know, and students are kind of sharing their work or kind of sharing their own ideas, you know, we don't want people kind of capturing images or in ways and sharing those things in ways that they shouldn't. So it's just a protective measure. It's just, we think, the safe thing to do. Again, not because we're anticipating any problems. It's just, we feel like it's a safety precaution.
Yep. Any other remaining questions? So I think we can take a vote.
Yep.
Because I read the motion already.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Vare?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Callanan?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
And Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
So the second policy was the policy that we approved at the last meeting, EBCFA, face coverings. And all that we're doing is moving that we amend that policy. So I'm going to read that, and then you guys can ask questions if you've got any. Move that the school committee amend policy EBCFA, face coverings, by removing bullet 7 on page 1, where it states face coverings are not required during physical education's classes, as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any
Motion.
questions about that? This was the discussion that we had, that Chris mentioned, kind of an inconsistency around guidance that was given around physical education classes, and a bullet that was included in there. And we decided that it was just smarter to remove it so that there wasn't confusion around 6 feet or not wearing masks and what is required for gym class. Any questions or comments? Okay, I think we can take a vote.
Okay. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Vare?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Callanan?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
And Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
So that was for our subcommittee. Those are the 2 policies that we've been kind of working on. And at this point, we do not have another meeting scheduled, although we're trying to get something scheduled for next week. Doug and Colleen both spoke a little bit about the work being done around parent university-like set of content that we're looking and talking about at the when we talk about communications. And so that's really what we've been focused on the last couple of meetings. And we do think that we need to get back together again soon, just because communication continues to be an ongoing priority for the group. And that's it from me.
Thank you, Susie. Next on the agenda is future dates and agenda items. The next virtual school committee meeting, I think it says on this agenda, it is October 6th, but we are changing the meeting to October 13th, which is the second Tuesday in October. And then following that would be the October 27th for the second meeting in October. Just to let you guys know, because I think the schedule on the website indicates the 6th and the 20th. So we're going to just kind of keep in line with the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. So that would be the 13th and the 27th. Other than that, school committee comments. And I'll just go in the order in which I see you guys on the Zoom. So Mike.
Oh, he's muted.
No comment? You're muted.
Sorry, no comments.
Thanks, Mike.
That took a while.
Tom?
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to thank with great appreciation all students and parents and faculty and staff for beginning this extraordinarily different and extraordinarily difficult school year. We have begun, you know, in earnest to work together to do the right thing and to try to bring people back and to create some new sense of normal. And it's the only success that we've had so far, and the only success we ever will have, is because of the good relationships that exist in our town. And I just wanted to say that, you know, out loud, and I would appreciate the work that everyone's doing. And even in some frustrating days, right? We have those too, but we work through those together as a team and as a community, and we can make it work. The next thing I just like to say a big wow. Chris Callanan is leaving this Wakefield School Committee, and a double wow. Chris Callanan is leaving Wakefield. Oh my God!
When does that happen?
We're gonna the pillar of our community is moving on. Well, anyways, Chris, we're gonna miss you. I know there'll be other opportunities for accolades and for good supportive comments, but I didn't want the night to go without me at least saying a couple things. And you know, you've been such a strong leader and voice for 15 plus years and longer, really, all across town, for schools, for school and town buildings and facilities, you know, building projects, former member of the town finance committee. As Tom Bankett said earlier, just a stalwart for music boosters as a parent and as alumni. Wakefield alumni, high school, Wakefield Association, you know, Democratic Town Committee, just an individual who has given so much to help so many people around town and to be such a positive contribution. I know I'm going to miss you. I'm sure all colleagues share that, but wish you nothing but the best, and congratulations in your decision.
Thank you, Tom. Well said. Susie?
I think I'm all set for tonight.
Thanks, Susie. Colleen?
If I could just echo what Tom said, if that's okay, Tom, for in your first comments, thanking the district, parents, staff, students, everyone involved in getting to us to the point where we're at. I also wanted to just on a something positive that's going on behind the scenes, that I participated in or at least joined a youth council meeting about a week ago, and it's really exciting to just watch their work. This is sort of a newly formed council that was discussed last year, and our former committee member Ann was involved in that, and now they're being mentored by Catherine Dingra. And I participated because we had some, you know, we've had conversation about our mascot and whatnot, and we've had to sort of delay that agenda item for now. But the conversation is happening, and they're really just taking it, you know, by the horns and just doing it in such a thoughtful way. And I feel like when I listen to students talk and operate like that, they're accountable to their peers, but also their community, and they're doing it in a way where they're surveying their peers, but also their community members at large. And just watching them is just such a model of behavior that I think we can all learn from, you know, because they're seeking alternative methods right now to meet and to participate in not only school committee, but they have liaisons in all of the committees and commissions across the town. And it was really just such a positive experience. Their work continues, and we hopefully will hear from them in upcoming meetings. Hopefully, you know, within the next month or so, they'll be able to come to one of our meetings and present their findings and have a discussion there. So just really proud of them in general, just to see the students in action. And Chris, I'll get to you later.
Thank you, Colleen. Same with me. You know, Chris, I can't thank you enough. Obviously, I know that we will be able to acknowledge you at our meeting on the 13th, but again, It is sad news to hear you are heading out, but we wish you all the best. So with that, I'll give you the last word.
Well, thank you. I wasn't expecting that. Trust me that although I may be moving from town, I'm not, town Wakefield never leaves a person. So I'll be in town every day for work, and I will continue to help in any way I can. So I'm not going away that completely. And also, know that I am not going to mail it in for the next 3 weeks either. I will participate in every meeting. I feel like there's 10 a week these days, so you'll have my full attention, and going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. No doubt about that, absolutely. Do we have a motion to adjourn, Susie?
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of September 22nd, 2020.
Second.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Baer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
And Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Thank you all. That concludes our meeting for this evening. I hope you all have a great night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.